The silence had been Zara's world for 8 long years. 8 years since the car accident that took her hearing and changed everything. 8 years of reading lips, signing with her hands, and watching her husband Ryan's mouth move in what she thought were words of love and support. But today, sitting in Dr. Peterson's office with the experimental hearing device finally working, she could hear again. The first sounds were overwhelming: the hum of the air conditioner, the tapping of keyboards in the next room, her own heartbeat thundering in her ears. When Dr. Peterson spoke, his voice sounded strange and wonderful. "The surgery was more successful than we hoped, Zara. Your hearing is at 90% of normal range. You'll need some adjustment time, but you can hear everything now." Tears ran down her cheeks as she listened to sounds she thought she'd never experience again. She wanted to call Ryan immediately, to share this miracle with the man who had stood by her through the darkest time of her life. The man who learned sign language for her, who held her when she cried about missing music, who promised her that love didn't need sound. "I need to tell my husband right away," she signed, then caught herself. I need to call my husband." Speaking felt strange after so many years of silence. Dr. Peterson smiled. "Take your time adjusting. Some patients find it helpful to ease back into the hearing world gradually. You don't have to tell everyone immediately if you're not ready." Zara nodded, but inside she was bursting with joy. She couldn't wait to surprise Ryan with this news. They could finally have the normal marriage they'd dreamed about. She drove home with the radio playing for the first time in years, crying at the beauty of music filling her car. Everything sounded different than she remembered, but it was magical. She pulled into their driveway and saw Ryan's car already there. Perfect. She could surprise him right now. Zara used her key quietly, planning to sneak up on him and speak his name, the first word she'd say to him in years. But as she stepped into the hallway, she heard something that made her freeze. Ryan's voice, coming from their bedroom upstairs. But he wasn't alone. "No, she can't hear us, baby. She's been stone deaf for years. We could have a whole party up here and she wouldn't know." A woman's laugh followed. A laugh Zara recognized. Brooke, their marriage counselor. The woman who had been helping them work through the challenges of Zara's disability for the past 6 months. "I still feel guilty sometimes," Brooke's voice floated down the stairs. "She seems so sweet." Sweet. Ryan's voice was harsh, nothing like the gentle tone he used when speaking to Zara's face. "She's a burden, Brooke. I've been trapped in this marriage for years, playing the devoted husband to someone who can't even hold a normal conversation. Do you know what it's like to be married to someone who can't hear your voice? I might as well be married to a wall." Zara's hand flew to her mouth to stop the gasp that wanted to escape. The miracle of her recovered hearing had become a nightmare in the span of minutes. "The divorce will be easy," Ryan continued. "I've been documenting how difficult she is to live with. With her disability, no judge will expect her to get much in the settlement. And once we're together, we can sell this house and buy that place in the mountains you love." "What about the money her grandmother left her?" Brooke asked. "The property in Atlanta?" Ryan laughed, a sound that made Zara's blood run cold. "She signed those papers last month. Didn't read them carefully, she just trusts me completely. That property will be mine in the divorce. She has no idea." Zara's legs gave out. She sank to the floor in her own hallway, listening to her husband and their marriage counselor plan to destroy her life. The two people she trusted most in the world were betraying her in the cruelest way possible. "When are you going to tell her?" Brooke asked. "Soon. I'm just waiting for the right moment. Maybe I'll say the stress of her disability has become too much for me. Everyone will understand. Who could blame a man for leaving a wife who can't even hear him say, 'I love you'?" They both laughed at this. Actually laughed at her pain, at the disability that had already cost her so much. Zara crawled to the bathroom and silently locked the door. She stared at herself in the mirror, the same face Ryan kissed goodbye that morning, the same woman he promised to love in sickness and in health. But now she could hear what he really thought of her. For 8 years she had been grateful for his patience. She had felt guilty for the burden her deafness placed on their marriage. She had believed she was lucky to have a husband who stayed with her despite her disability. But he had been lying the entire time. Using her deafness to hide his true feelings, his affair, his plans to take everything from her. Zara wiped her tears and looked at herself again. But this time she wasn't looking at a victim. She was looking at a woman with a secret weapon they didn't know about. She could hear them. She could hear everything. And they had no idea. A plan began forming in her mind as she listened to them continue their conversation upstairs. They thought her disability made her weak, made her an easy target. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The next morning, Zara sat at the breakfast table watching Ryan butter his toast, The same routine they'd followed for years. But everything was different now. Every smile felt like a lie, every gentle touch felt like a betrayal. "Good morning, beautiful," Ryan signed, leaning over to kiss her forehead. His lips moved in words she had learned to read. "Did you sleep well?" Zara nodded and signed back. "Yes, thank you." She had practiced in the mirror all night, making sure her face showed nothing of what she had learned. Ryan's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and his face lit up with a smile that never appeared when he looked at her. He typed quickly, probably texting Brooke. For 8 years, Zara had assumed he was texting work colleagues or friends when his face got that happy expression. Now she knew the truth. "I have to go to the office early today," he signed. "Big client meeting." Zara nodded, understanding. Another lie. She had heard him tell Brooke last night that Wednesdays were perfect for their meetings because Zara had physical therapy and would be out of the house. But Zara had canceled physical therapy that morning. She planned to follow him instead. After Ryan left, Zara sat in the silence that had been her companion for so many years. But now the silence was a choice, not a prison. She could hear the refrigerator humming, the neighbor's dog barking, a car passing by. Every sound was a gift she had been given just in time to save herself. She opened her laptop and began researching divorce lawyers. Not the kind Ryan would expect her to choose, the gentle, sympathetic type who would feel sorry for her disability. She was looking for sharks. Lawyers who specialized in complex financial cases and spouse fraud. Her phone lit up with a text from Ryan. "Love you. Have a good day at therapy." More lies. She screenshotted the text and saved it in a new folder on her phone labeled Evidence. At 10 o'clock, Zara drove to Ryan's office building. She parked across the street and waited. Sure enough, at 10:30 Ryan walked out with Brooke. They were holding hands and laughing together. Zara took photos with her phone, making sure to capture their faces clearly. She followed them to a small cafe downtown, one they had obviously been to many times before. The hostess greeted them like regulars and seated them at a corner table. Through the window, Zara could see them talking intimately. Brooke reached across the table to touch Ryan's hand. He brought her fingers to his lips and kissed them. The same hands that had been in Zara's hair that morning, promising love and devotion. She took more photos, then called the cafe. "Hi, I'm trying to reach my friend Brooke. She mentioned she might be having lunch there today? I wanted to surprise her." "Oh yes, she's here with her boyfriend. They come in every Wednesday. Would you like me to give her a message?" "No thank you. I'll catch up with her later." Boyfriend. They were so comfortable with their relationship that they acted like a couple in public. How many people knew about their affair while Zara lived in ignorance? She drove home and spent the afternoon researching everything about their marriage finances. Ryan handled all their money because he said it was too complicated for her to manage while dealing with her hearing loss. She had trusted him completely. Now she pulled up bank statements online and felt sick. Large withdrawals she had never known about. Transfers to accounts she couldn't identify. Expensive purchases that never appeared in their home. He had been stealing from their joint accounts to fund his relationship with Brooke. That evening, Ryan came home with flowers, cheap grocery store daisies, not the expensive roses she could see in their bank statements that he had been buying for someone else. "Sorry I'm late," he signed. "Long day at work." Zara smiled and accepted the flowers, signing "thank you," as she had done hundreds of times before. But inside, she was calculating exactly how much money he had spent on Brooke in the past 6 months. Over dinner, Ryan's phone kept buzzing. Each time, he would glance at it and smile slightly before turning his attention back to her. "Work emails," he signed when he noticed her watching. "Must be important clients to text so late," Zara signed back. Ryan's smile faltered for just a second. "You know how it is. Business never stops." After dinner, Ryan said he needed to make some work calls and went upstairs to their bedroom. Zara cleaned the kitchen and then crept to the bottom of the stairs to listen. "I miss you already," Ryan's voice drifted down. "Lunch wasn't enough time together." "I know," Brooke replied on speaker. "But we have to be careful. Just a few more weeks and then we can be together all the time." "I picked up the papers today," Ryan said. "Once I serve them to her, she'll be so shocked she won't know what to do. Her family will probably encourage her to just sign whatever I put in front of her." "What about the house?" "I'm going to tell her it's too big for her to manage alone. That she should find a small apartment somewhere, something more suitable for someone with her challenges." They both laughed again. The sound made Zara's stomach turn. "And the inheritance from her grandmother?" "Already transferred into my name. She signed the papers last month thinking they were insurance updates." She never reads anything carefully, just trusts me to handle all the complicated stuff. Zara's hands clenched into fists. The property her grandmother had left her was worth over $200,000. It was supposed to be her security, her connection to her family's history. You're terrible, Brooke giggled. But brilliant. She'll be fine, Ryan said dismissively. There are programs for people like her. She'll get disability payments, maybe live in some kind of assisted housing. She doesn't need much. People like her. He talked about her like she was a burden, a charity case, not the woman who had loved him faithfully for 12 years. I should go, Ryan said. She'll wonder why I'm taking so long with work calls. I love you, Brooke whispered. I love you too, baby. Soon we'll never have to hide again. Zara crept back to the living room and was sitting on the couch reading when Ryan came downstairs. All done with work, he signed, sitting beside her and putting his arm around her shoulders. Zara leaned into him like she always did, but now his touch made her skin crawl. This man who held her at night had been planning to destroy her life for months. I love you, he signed, looking into her eyes with what she had always thought was genuine affection. I love you too, she signed back. But for the first time in their marriage, Zara was the one who was lying. Zara spent the next week living a double life. During the day she was the loving, trusting wife Ryan thought he knew. At night, after he fell asleep, she was a woman on a mission. She had made appointments with 3 different divorce lawyers, all scheduled during her physical therapy times. She told Ryan the sessions were being increased to help with her balance issues, another lie he accepted without question. The first lawyer, Patricia Williams, was everything Zara hoped for. Sharp, experienced, and utterly ruthless when it came to protecting her clients' interests. Mrs. Bennett, Patricia said as they sat in her office, what you're describing is financial abuse, fraud, and adultery. In this state, that gives us significant leverage. Zara had decided to tell Patricia about her recovered hearing. She needed at least one person who knew the full truth. The fact that you can record their conversations without their knowledge is a tremendous advantage, Patricia continued. But we need to be very strategic about how we use this information. I want him to lose everything, Zara said quietly. The way he planned for me to lose everything. Patricia nodded. Tell me about the inheritance. Zara showed her the documents Ryan had tricked her into signing. Patricia's face darkened as she read them. These papers transfer ownership of your grandmother's property to your husband. But look here, she pointed to a section of fine print. The transfer doesn't become legal for 60 days from signing. We still have 2 weeks to challenge this. Can we stop it? Better than that. Since you signed under false pretenses, not only can we reverse the transfer, we can use it as evidence of fraud. Your husband could face criminal charges. For the first time since hearing Ryan's betrayal, Zara smiled. A real smile. They spent 2 hours going through every document, every bank statement, every piece of evidence Zara had gathered. Patricia took detailed notes and made copies of everything. I'm going to have a private investigator do some additional digging, Patricia said. If your husband has been this careless about hiding evidence from you, he's probably been careless in other ways too. That evening, Zara cooked Ryan's favorite dinner and listened to him talk about his stressful day at work. Every word was an act, every smile was calculated. But she was getting good at pretending. After dinner, Ryan's phone rang. He looked at the caller ID and his face lit up. I need to take this work call, he signed to Zara, pointing upstairs. Zara nodded understandingly and continued loading the dishwasher. But she was counting the minutes until she could creep upstairs and listen. Baby, I wish I could see you tonight, Ryan was saying when she reached her listening spot on the stairs. But Zara's being extra clingy lately. I think she senses something's wrong. Women's intuition, Brooke laughed. Even deaf women have it. She keeps asking me questions about money. Whether we're okay financially, stuff like that. I told her business has been slow but we're fine. Zara almost laughed out loud. She hadn't asked him any financial questions. Ryan was getting paranoid, seeing suspicion where there was only her normal concern for their household. When are you going to serve the papers? Brooke asked. Next Friday. I'm taking her out to dinner first, somewhere public so she won't make a scene. I'll tell her I need space to work through some personal issues, and that I think it's best if we separate for a while. That's so cruel, Brooke said, but she was laughing. You're going to blindside her. It's kinder this way. Like ripping off a bandage quickly. Besides, what's she going to do? She can't exactly call me and argue about it. Their laughter echoed up the stairs, and Zara had to press her hand to her mouth to keep from screaming. I looked at apartments today, Brooke continued. There's a beautiful 2-bedroom in the Arts District. It's expensive, but with the money from selling her house and that property, we can afford it. Perfect. We'll be living our dream life while she's in some subsidized housing somewhere, probably grateful that anyone ever wanted to marry her in the first place. That was the last straw. Zara had heard enough cruelty to fuel her revenge for a lifetime. The next morning after Ryan left for work, Zara drove to Patricia's office with a new plan forming in her mind. I want to serve him first, she told Patricia, before he has a chance to serve me. Patricia raised an eyebrow. That's unusual. Most people want to delay these things as long as possible. Not me. I want him to feel exactly what he planned to make me feel. Shock, betrayal, confusion. I want him to experience being blindsided by someone he trusts. When? Zara thought about it. Ryan had planned to serve her next Friday at a restaurant. The cruelty of that plan humiliating her in public, making her disability part of the spectacle still made her angry. This Friday, she said. At his office in front of all his co-workers. I want everyone to see what kind of man he really is. Patricia smiled. I like the way you think, Mrs. Bennett, but we need to make sure we have everything in order first. The private investigator found some interesting information about your husband's finances. She opened a folder and spread out several documents. It turns out your husband has been skimming money from his company's client accounts to pay for his lifestyle with Brooke. We're talking about embezzlement, not just marital fraud. Zara stared at the papers. He could go to prison for this. Very likely. The question is, do you want to press criminal charges or just use this as leverage in the divorce? Both, Zara said without hesitation. I want him to face every consequence for every lie he's told. Patricia nodded approvingly. Then let's build a case that will destroy him completely. But first we need to make sure you're protected. I'm going to have you open new bank accounts in your name only and transfer your personal money there. We'll also file papers to freeze all joint assets so he can't liquidate everything before the divorce. As they worked through the details, Zara felt something she hadn't experienced in 8 years. Power. Control over her own life. The ability to fight back against the people who had tried to take advantage of her. Ryan thought her disability made her weak and helpless. He was about to learn that underestimating her was the biggest mistake of his life. The private investigator Patricia hired was worth every penny. Her name was Detective Rita Martinez, a former police officer who specialized in financial crimes and adultery cases. Your husband has been busy, Rita said, spreading files across Patricia's conference table. The affair with Brooke has been going on for 2.5 years, not the 6 months you thought. Zara felt like she had been punched in the stomach. 2.5 years meant it started just 6 months after she lost her hearing. While she was still struggling to adjust to her new reality, still grieving the loss of sound, Ryan was already looking for someone else. It gets worse, Rita continued. Brooke wasn't your first marriage counselor. Ryan deliberately sought her out because she has a history of inappropriate relationships with male clients. He researched her specifically. What do you mean? Rita opened another file. Brooke lost her license in another state 5 years ago for having affairs with 3 different married male clients. She moved here and got licensed again by lying about her previous disciplinary actions. Ryan found this out through some legal contacts and specifically requested her as your counselor. The room spun around Zara. Their entire marriage counseling experience had been a setup from the beginning. So none of the therapy was real? Zara whispered. None of it. Every session was designed to push you 2 further apart while bringing your husband and Brooke closer together. Look at these notes. Rita showed her copies of Brooke's official session notes. They were completely different from what Zara remembered happening in therapy. According to Brooke's notes, Zara was resistant to treatment, uncooperative, and showed signs of depression and dependency that put strain on the marriage. None of it was true, but it would look convincing to anyone who read the files. She was building a case for your husband, Patricia explained. Documentation that would support his claims that you were difficult to live with and that he had tried everything to save the marriage. There's more, Rita said. Your husband has been telling everyone in his social circle that you're mentally unstable because of your hearing loss. He's been setting up a narrative for months that he's a long-suffering husband dealing with a wife who has psychological problems. Zara felt tears burning her eyes. Not only had Ryan betrayed her sexually and financially, but he had been destroying her reputation for years. His co-workers, his friends from college, even some of your neighbors, he's been telling them all that you're fragile and difficult, that your disability has made you paranoid and demanding. But that's not true, Zara said. I've been independent. I've never been difficult. We know that, Patricia said gently. But Ryan has been very strategic about controlling the narrative. When word gets out about the divorce, people will already believe his version of events. Rita pulled out another set of documents. The financial fraud goes deeper too. Your husband has been using your disability as an excuse to control all your finances, but he's been doing things that are completely illegal. She showed Zara credit cards that had been opened in her name without her knowledge. Loans that used her grandmother's property as collateral. Insurance policies where Ryan was the beneficiary even though Zara was paying the premiums. The total amount of financial fraud is close to $400,000, Rita said. He's been planning this for a very long time. Zara stared at the papers in disbelief. He's been stealing from me for years. Not just stealing, Patricia corrected. He's been systematically dismantling your financial security while building up his own. If he had successfully divorced you under his original plan, you would have been left with nothing while he and Brooke lived off your money. The cruelty of it was overwhelming. Ryan hadn't just betrayed her, he had spent years methodically destroying her life while pretending to love her. There's one more thing, Rita said carefully. And this might be the most upsetting. She pulled out a folder marked Personal Communications. Inside were printed text messages and emails between Ryan and Brooke. Some of these go back to the beginning of their affair. They're very explicit about their feelings towards you. Zara took the folder with shaking hands. The first email made her stomach turn. I can't wait until I don't have to pretend anymore, Ryan had written. Coming home to her every night, having to act like I care about her day, having to touch her and pretend I'm attracted to someone so broken. I feel like I'm living a lie. Brooke's response was even worse. You're such a good man for staying with her as long as you have. Most men would have left already. She's lucky you're willing to support someone so damaged. The emails went on for pages. Ryan describing in detail how exhausting it was to live with her. Brooke analyzing Zara's personality and appearance in cruel, clinical terms. Both of them laughing about her limitations and making jokes about her disability. One exchange from 8 months ago made Zara's blood run cold. Ryan, she actually thanked me yesterday for being patient with her. Said she knows she's not easy to live with. If she only knew what I really think. Brooke, that's so pathetic. She's grateful for basic human decency because she thinks she doesn't deserve it. Makes me feel almost sorry for her. Almost. Ryan, don't feel sorry for her. She's getting what she deserves. Some people are just meant to be alone. Zara closed the folder and stared at the conference table. For 8 years she had felt grateful to have a husband who stayed with her after her accident. She had felt lucky that someone could love her despite her disability. But there had never been any love. Only calculation, cruelty, and contempt. Mrs. Bennet, Patricia said gently, I know this is overwhelming. But this evidence gives us everything we need to destroy your husband legally and financially. Will it be enough to send him to prison? Zara asked. With the embezzlement from his company added to the financial fraud against you, he's looking at serious jail time. And Brooke? Professional misconduct, fraud, and conspiracy. She'll lose her license permanently and face criminal charges too. Zara nodded slowly. The pain was still there, but underneath it was something stronger. Cold, focused anger. I want them both to pay for everything, she said quietly. Every lie, every cruel word, every dollar they stole. I want them to lose everything just like they planned for me. Then let's get started, Patricia said. Because we're going to make sure they never hurt another person the way they hurt you. Julian Torres was not what Zara had expected from a divorce lawyer. She had imagined someone cold and calculating, focused only on winning at any cost. Instead, she found herself sitting across from a man whose eyes showed genuine anger when he heard her story. Mrs. Bennet, I have to be honest with you, Julian said after Patricia introduced them. I've been practicing family law for 15 years, and this is one of the most calculated cases of spouse abuse I've ever seen. Patricia had brought Julian in as co-counsel because of his expertise in disability rights and financial crimes. But from the moment Zara started telling her story, Julian's professional detachment had disappeared. The systematic way your husband used your hearing loss to control and deceive you, Julian continued, it's not just financial fraud. It's a form of torture. Zara was surprised by the emotion in his voice. Most people spoke about her situation with pity or awkward sympathy. Julian spoke with righteous anger on her behalf. I want to make sure you understand something, he said, leaning forward slightly. None of this happened because of your hearing loss. Your husband is a predator who saw your temporary vulnerability and decided to exploit it. But you are not a victim anymore. Those words hit Zara like a revelation. She had spent years thinking of herself as someone who had been damaged by the accident, someone who should be grateful for whatever love she could find. But Julian was right, she wasn't a victim anymore. Patricia tells me you've been recording their conversations, Julian said. That took incredible courage and intelligence. You've built a case against them that most professional investigators couldn't improve on. Over the next 2 hours they went through every piece of evidence. Julian took careful notes and asked detailed questions, but he also did something no other lawyer had done. He asked about her. What did you do before the accident? He wanted to know. I was a graphic designer, Zara said. I had my own small business doing logos and websites for local companies. And after the accident? Ryan convinced me to sell the business. He said it would be too stressful to manage clients when I couldn't hear phone calls or attend meetings. Julian frowned. Did you believe that? Zara thought about it. At the time, yes. I was so overwhelmed by losing my hearing that everything felt impossible. But you've been managing complex financial investigations, legal research and surveillance for the past month, Julian pointed out. Does that sound like someone who couldn't handle a graphic design business? He was right. The skills she had used to uncover Ryan's betrayal were far more complex than anything her old business had required. Your husband isolated you professionally just like he isolated you personally, Julian said. He made you financially dependent so you couldn't leave him. I never thought of it that way. Most abuse victims don't, especially when the abuse is subtle and long-term. But look at what you've accomplished in just a few weeks once you started fighting back. You're not the helpless person your husband pretended you were. Julian's respect for her abilities was something Zara had never experienced. Ryan had always spoken to her like she needed protection from the complexity of the world. Julian spoke to her like she was capable of handling anything. I have a proposition, Julian said. Patricia and I have discussed it, and we think this case could set important legal precedents for other disabled people who face similar abuse. What kind of precedents? Right now, there are very few laws specifically protecting disabled spouses from financial manipulation. Your case could help change that. Julian pulled out a legal brief he had been working on. If we win this case and get maximum penalties for your husband and Brooke, it could establish new standards for prosecuting disability-based financial abuse. You mean other people in situations like mine could be better protected? Exactly. Your courage could help save other people from going through what you've experienced. Zara felt a stirring of something she hadn't experienced in years. Purpose. The idea that her pain could be transformed into protection for others gave her situation new meaning. There's one more thing, Julian said. For this to work, we need to be very public about the case. Media attention, advocacy groups, possibly testimony before legislative committees. Are you prepared for that level of exposure? Zara thought about it. The old Zara, the one who had felt ashamed of her disability and grateful for any scraps of love, would have been terrified of public attention. But she wasn't that person anymore. Yes, she said firmly. If it helps other people, I want to be as public as possible. Julian smiled, and Zara noticed he had a warm, genuine expression that reached his eyes. So different from Ryan's calculated charm. Then let's make some history, he said. As they continued working through the legal strategy, Zara found herself watching Julian carefully. He was probably in his early 40s with graying hair and laugh lines around his eyes. He wore his competence easily without arrogance or condescension. When he explained legal concepts to her, he never talked down to her or assumed she couldn't understand complex ideas. When she asked questions, he took them seriously and gave thoughtful answers. Have you ever handled a case like this before? She asked. Not exactly like this, but I specialize in cases where people's disabilities are used against them. My younger brother is deaf, he said. I've seen how some people try to take advantage of disabled individuals, and it makes me furious. Is that why you became a lawyer? Julian nodded. I wanted to make sure people like my brother had someone fighting for them. Someone who understood that disability doesn't mean helpless. As the afternoon wore on, Zara realized she was enjoying Julian's company. For the first time in years, she was having an intellectual conversation with a man who respected her mind. When their meeting ended, Julian walked her to her car. Mrs. Bennett, he said, I want you to know that regardless of what happens in court, you've already won the most important victory. What do you mean? You chose to fight back. You chose to value yourself enough to demand justice. That's not something everyone finds the courage to do. Driving home, Zara thought about Julian's words. She was fighting back and it felt incredible. For 8 years she had accepted Ryan's version of reality, that she was lucky to be loved despite her disability, that she should be grateful for whatever she could get. But now she understood the truth. She deserved love that didn't require gratitude. She deserved respect that wasn't conditional on her abilities. She deserved a partner who saw her as an equal, not a burden. Ryan had tried to convince her that no one else would ever want her. But sitting in that conference room with Julian, being treated like an intelligent, capable woman, she realized how wrong Ryan had been. She was worth so much more than she had ever believed. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. Zara would pretend to go visit her sister in Chicago for the weekend, giving Ryan and Brooke complete freedom to be together in the house. What they didn't know was that Zara would be staying at a hotel just 20 minutes away, with high-quality recording equipment provided by Detective Martinez. The key is to get them comfortable enough to discuss their future plans in detail, Patricia explained during their final planning meeting. We need them talking about the financial fraud, the timeline for the divorce, and their long-term plans for your assets. Julian had spent the week preparing the technical aspects. These recording devices are completely legal since it's your own home, he said, showing Zara the small, nearly invisible microphones. They'll pick up conversations anywhere in the house. What if they don't say anything incriminating? Zara asked. They will, Detective Martinez said confidently. People having affairs always discuss the future when they think they're completely alone. It's human nature. That Thursday evening, Zara put her plan into motion. She had been telling Ryan for days about her sister's invitation to visit Chicago, emphasizing how much she needed the emotional support during this difficult time in their marriage. Ryan had been almost eager for her to go. I think it's a great idea, he signed over dinner. You seem stressed lately. Some time away might be good for you. If only he knew she was stressed from listening to him plan her destruction every night. Will you miss me? She signed playfully, testing to see his reaction. Ryan's smile looked forced. Of course, sweetheart. But it's just a few days. That evening, Zara packed her suitcase while Ryan showered. She could hear him humming in the bathroom, actually humming with happiness at the thought of her leaving. The sound made her stomach turn. Before she left Friday morning, Zara kissed Ryan goodbye and signed, I love you, one last time. He responded the same way, holding her close and looking into her eyes with what she had once believed was genuine affection. Have a safe trip, he signed. Call me when you get there. Zara nodded, knowing she would never kiss this man again. The thought filled her with relief rather than sadness. She drove to her hotel and checked in, then called Julian to confirm everything was in place. Recording equipment is active, he told her. Detective Martinez is monitoring from a van nearby. If anything goes wrong, she can be in the house in less than 2 minutes. And the other plan? Everything is ready for Monday morning. The papers are prepared, the authorities have been notified, and the media contacts are standing by. Zara spent Friday afternoon trying to relax, but her nerves were too tight. At 4 o'clock her phone buzzed with a text from Ryan. Hope you made it safely. Love you. She texted back, just arrived. Sister says hello. Another lie in their marriage built on lies. At 6 o'clock Detective Martinez called. They're there, she said. Your husband and Brooke arrived together about 20 minutes ago. They're very comfortable, very relaxed. Can you hear what they're saying? Crystal clear. You want me to play some of it back? Not yet. Just record everything. I'll listen to it all tomorrow. Saturday was the longest day of Zara's life. She spent it walking around the hotel trying to read, attempting to watch television. Nothing could distract her from what was happening in her house. Detective Martinez called with updates every few hours. They're discussing timeline, she reported at noon. Your husband is planning to serve you with papers next Friday, just like you suspected. At 3 o'clock, they're going through your personal belongings. Looking at photo albums and jewelry. Discussing what they want to keep and what they'll sell. At 6 o'clock, big conversation about money. They're planning to pay off Brooke's student loans with the proceeds from your grandmother's property. By evening, Zara's hands were shaking with anger. These people were not only stealing her money and destroying her marriage, they were treating her home like a shopping mall, deciding which pieces of her life they wanted to keep. Sunday morning, Detective Martinez arrived at the hotel with a recording device full of evidence. You need to prepare yourself, she warned. Some of this is going to be very hard to hear. She was right. Listening to Ryan and Brooke discuss her life like she was already gone was devastating. But it was also exactly what they needed for court. Listen to this part, Detective Martinez said, fast-forwarding to Saturday evening. Brooke's voice came through clearly. I still can't believe she never suspected anything. Even when you were coming home late, smelling like my perfume, acting completely different, she never questioned it. That's what I mean about her being naive, Ryan replied. She lived in this fantasy where I was her devoted husband who stayed with her out of love. She never considered that I might want something better. Something better, Zara whispered, staring at the recording device. Wait, there's more, Detective Martinez said. Ryan's voice continued, the beautiful thing is she'll probably blame herself for the marriage failing. She'll think her disability made her a bad wife. She'll never realize I was planning this from the beginning. From the beginning? Brooke asked. Almost. I started looking for a way out about 6 months after her accident. I realized I had married someone who was going to be a burden for the rest of my life, and I wasn't willing to sacrifice my happiness for her. Zara closed her eyes and took a deep breath. She had heard enough cruelty to fuel her anger for the legal battle ahead. Did you get everything we need? She asked Detective Martinez. Everything and more. Admissions of financial fraud, conspiracy, emotional abuse, and intent to commit theft. Plus detailed discussions of their timeline and methods. Then it's time to spring the trap. Monday morning, Zara drove home early. Ryan's car wasn't in the driveway. He had already left for work, expecting her to return that evening. She spent an hour walking through her house, seeing it through new eyes. Ryan and Brooke had been careful to clean up after themselves, but Zara could sense their presence everywhere. They had violated her most private space with their affair and their plans. But this house was still hers. And after today they would never set foot in it again. At 9 o'clock sharp, Julian called. Are you ready? He asked. I've been ready for 8 years, Zara replied. Let's destroy them. Ryan's law firm occupied the 15th floor of a downtown high-rise, all glass walls and expensive furniture designed to impress clients. Zara had only been there twice during their marriage, once for a Christmas party and once when she brought Ryan lunch during a particularly busy week. Today she was there to end his career. The plan was precise. Julian and Patricia had coordinated with Detective Martinez and the district attorney's office. At exactly 10:30 a.m., while Ryan was in his weekly staff meeting, Zara would arrive with the divorce papers and a folder of evidence that would destroy his life. Remember, Julian had told her that morning, you don't need to say much. Let the documents speak for themselves. Zara rode the elevator to the 15th floor, her heart pounding but her resolve steady. She wore her best black dress and carried herself with the confidence of a woman who knew she was about to win the biggest fight of her life. The receptionist recognized her. Mrs. Bennett? How nice to see you. Are you here to surprise Ryan? Something like that, Zara replied. Is he in his staff meeting? Yes, in the main conference room. They should be finishing up in a few minutes. Perfect. I'll wait. Zara sat in the reception area and watched through the glass walls as Ryan addressed his colleagues. He looked confident and relaxed, probably discussing cases and billing targets while having no idea his entire world was about to collapse. At 10:28, the meeting started to break up. Ryan was shaking hands with other lawyers, laughing about something. He looked so normal, so respectable. None of his colleagues had any idea they were looking at a man who had spent years psychologically torturing his disabled wife. Ryan spotted Zara through the glass and his face went white. She wasn't supposed to be back from Chicago until that evening. For a moment, he looked panicked, probably wondering if she had somehow discovered his weekend with Brooke. But then he composed himself and walked toward the reception area with his professional smile in place. Sweetheart, he said loud enough for his colleagues to hear, I thought you weren't coming back until tonight. Change of plans? Zara said, standing up. I need to talk to you about something important. Of course. Let's go to my office. Actually, Zara said clearly, I think the conference room would be better. This involves other people too. Ryan's smile faltered. Several of his colleagues had stopped to listen, curious about the unexpected drama. Zara, maybe we should discuss this privately first, Ryan said, switching to sign language. But Zara didn't sign back. Instead, she spoke out loud, her voice clear and strong. I can hear you, Ryan. I've been able to hear you for weeks now. The silence in the law firm was absolute. Ryan's face went from white to gray as he processed what she had said. That's impossible, he whispered. Is it? Dr. Peterson's experimental surgery was more successful than expected. I've been able to hear every conversation you've had with Brooke, every plan you've made to destroy my life, every cruel thing you've said about my disability. By now, every lawyer and staff member in the office was staring at them. Ryan looked around desperately, realizing that his reputation was being destroyed in real time. Zara, you don't understand. I understand perfectly, she interrupted. I understand that you've been having an affair with our marriage counselor for 2.5 years. I understand that you've been stealing money from our joint accounts to pay for your relationship with her. I understand that you've been telling everyone I'm mentally unstable so they'd believe your version of events when you divorced me. Zara, please, not here. Why not here? Zara's voice was getting stronger. You had no problem discussing our private life with Brooke. You had no problem mocking my disability to your lover. Why should you be embarrassed now? Julian appeared in the elevator lobby, right on schedule. He walked toward them carrying a briefcase and looking every inch the successful attorney. Mr. Bennett, Julian said formally, I'm Julian Torres, representing your wife in her divorce action against you. He handed Ryan a thick folder. These are divorce papers, along with evidence of financial fraud, adultery, and emotional abuse. You're also being served with a restraining order that requires you to stay away from Mrs. Bennett and her property. Ryan opened the folder with shaking hands. His face went even paler as he saw the bank records, the recorded conversations, the photographs of him with Brooke. This is everything, isn't it? He whispered to Zara. Everything and more, she replied. Did you really think I was too stupid to figure it out? Too damaged by my disability to fight back? Mrs. Bennett, Julian said loudly enough for everyone to hear, would you like to inform Mr. Bennett about the criminal charges? Criminal charges? Ryan's voice cracked. The district attorney is filing charges for embezzlement, fraud, and financial exploitation of a disabled person, Zara said. Turns out all that money you stole from me and from your clients adds up to a felony. Ryan's boss, Thomas Sterling, pushed through the crowd of onlookers. What's this about embezzlement from clients? Julian opened his briefcase and pulled out another folder. Mr. Sterling, I believe you'll want to see this. Your employee has been skimming money from client settlements to fund his personal lifestyle. Thomas took the folder and quickly scanned the documents inside. His face went from confusion to anger to disgust. Ryan, is this true? Ryan couldn't speak. He just stood there holding the divorce papers, staring at Zara like he was seeing her for the first time. You're fired, Thomas said flatly. Security will escort you out. Don't bother cleaning out your office, we'll mail your personal items. Thomas, please let me explain. There's nothing to explain, Thomas replied. You've been stealing from our clients and lying to everyone about your personal life. You're done here. 2 security guards appeared and flanked Ryan. The man who had controlled Zara's life for 8 years was being led away like a common criminal. But Zara wasn't finished. There's one more thing, she called after him. Brooke is being arrested this morning too. Professional misconduct, fraud, and conspiracy. She'll lose her license permanently. Ryan stopped walking and turned back to her. For the first time, she saw fear in his eyes instead of control. How could you do this to me? He asked. Zara stared at him, this man who had pretended to love her while systematically destroying her life. The same way you did it to me, she said quietly. Except I'm not pretending it's love. As Ryan was escorted out of the building, Zara felt a weight lift from her shoulders that she hadn't even realized she was carrying. 8 years of feeling grateful for scraps of affection, 8 years of believing she was lucky to be loved despite her disability, 8 years of accepting less than she deserved. All of it was over. Julian put his hand gently on her shoulder. How do you feel? Zara looked around at the faces of Ryan's former colleagues, all staring at her with new respect and understanding. She thought about Ryan's empty house, his ruined career, his criminal charges. She thought about Brooke losing everything she had worked for. I feel free, she said. And for the first time in 8 years, it was completely true. The next 3 weeks moved with the swift precision of a well-orchestrated legal campaign. Patricia and Julian had coordinated with the district attorney, the state licensing board, and the media to ensure that Ryan and Brooke faced consequences on every possible front. Zara watched it all unfold from the safety of her new reality, a reality where she was in control of her own life for the first time in years. The criminal charges came first. Ryan was arrested at his apartment 2 days after being fired, charged with embezzlement of client funds, financial fraud, and exploitation of a disabled person. The local news covered his perp walk, describing him as a lawyer who had betrayed both his clients and his hearing-impaired wife. Brooke was arrested the same day at her office. The charges against her included professional misconduct, conspiracy to commit fraud, and practicing therapy without proper licensing credentials. The state board had discovered her previous disciplinary actions in another state, which she had hidden when applying for her license. The beauty of it, Patricia explained to Zara over coffee, is that all these charges support each other. The criminal charges make the divorce case stronger, and the divorce evidence supports the criminal prosecution. What kind of prison time are they looking at? Zara asked. Ryan could get 5 to 10 years for the embezzlement alone. Add in the fraud against you and he's looking at serious time. Brooke will probably get 2 to 3 years, plus permanent loss of her professional license. But the legal victories were just the beginning. Julian had been right about the case setting important precedents. Disability rights organizations had taken notice of Zara's story, and it was becoming a rallying point for legislative change. 3 states are introducing bills based on your case, Julian told her during one of their weekly strategy meetings. They're called Zara's Laws legislation that creates specific penalties for financial abuse of disabled spouses. Zara still couldn't believe her personal nightmare was being transformed into protection for other people. Will it really make a difference? It already has. We've gotten calls from 12 other people in similar situations. They saw your story in the news and realized they were being abused too. The divorce proceedings moved quickly once the criminal evidence was presented. Ryan's lawyer tried to negotiate, but there was no room for compromise. The prenuptial agreement Ryan had tricked Zara into signing was thrown out due to fraud, and the financial abuse actually strengthened Zara's position. You're getting the house, all joint assets, and full ownership of your grandmother's property, Patricia explained. Ryan will be responsible for all the debt he created during the affair. Plus, you'll get spousal support until he gets out of prison, assuming he has any income left after paying legal fees and restitution. What about Brooke? She's lost everything. Her house is being sold to pay legal fees, her therapy practice is closed, and she'll be working minimum wage jobs when she gets out of prison. If she ever gets another professional license, it won't be in mental health. The financial justice was satisfying, but what meant more to Zara was the restoration of her reputation. Ryan had spent years telling people she was unstable and difficult. Now everyone knew the truth. Thomas Sterling, Ryan's former boss, had called Zara personally to apologize. I'm embarrassed that we employed someone capable of such cruelty, he told her. If there's anything our firm can do to make amends, please let us know. The apology meant a lot, but Zara had bigger plans. Actually, there is something, she said. I want to start a foundation to help disabled people who are being financially abused. Would your firm be interested in providing pro bono legal support? Absolutely. It would be an honor. That conversation led to others. Within a month, Zara had commitments from 3 law firms, 2 accounting companies, and a private investigation agency to donate services to her foundation. Julian helped her navigate the legal requirements for setting up a nonprofit organization. They spent hours together working through bylaws, mission statements, and funding strategies. You know, he said during one late-night planning session, most people would take a vacation after going through what you've experienced. Instead, you're launching a foundation. I can't rest knowing there are other people out there going through what I went through, Zara replied. Besides, I feel more energized now than I have in years. It was true. The woman who had felt grateful for any scraps of love was gone, replaced by someone with purpose and power. Every day brought new possibilities instead of new disappointments. The foundation is going to need a board of directors, Julian said. Have you thought about who you want to recruit? I was hoping you'd agree to serve, Zara said. You understand the legal issues better than anyone. Julian smiled. I'd be honored. But I have to warn you, I tend to get very invested in causes I care about. That's exactly what we need. As they worked together on the foundation, Zara found herself looking forward to their meetings for reasons that went beyond legal strategy. Julian treated her as an equal partner in every decision, valued her opinions, and never made her feel like her hearing loss was a limitation. He also made her laugh. Something she hadn't done in years with a man. You know, Julian said one evening as they finished reviewing grant applications, when this is all over and Ryan and Brooke are in prison, what's the first thing you want to do to celebrate? Zara thought about it. For 8 years, her life had been constrained by Ryan's control and her own belief that she should be grateful for whatever she got. Now the world was full of possibilities. I want to travel, she said. I want to see places I've never been, hear sounds I've never heard. I want to experience everything I've been missing. Sounds like an excellent plan, Julian said. You deserve to see the world. The way he looked at her when he said it made Zara's heart beat faster. It had been so long since a man had looked at her with admiration instead of pity or calculation. But that was a possibility for the future. Right now, she was focused on making sure Ryan and Brooke paid for every lie they had told and every dollar they had stolen. Justice was coming, and Zara was going to make sure it was complete. 6 months after Ryan's arrest, Zara stood in the conference room of her new foundation's offices, looking out at the city skyline. The Bennett Foundation for Disability Justice occupied a full floor of a downtown building, with space for lawyers, counselors, investigators, and support staff. The application from Oregon looks promising, Julian said, reviewing case files at the conference table. A deaf woman whose husband has been stealing her Social Security payments for 3 years. Approved, Zara said without hesitation. Get Detective Martinez on the case immediately. In 6 months, the foundation had handled 37 cases of financial abuse against disabled people. They had won every single one, recovering over $2 million for victims and sending 12 abusers to prison. Zara's story had inspired people across the country to come forward with their own experiences of abuse. The foundation's hotline received calls daily from disabled individuals who were beginning to suspect they were being exploited. There's something else, Julian said, pulling out a newspaper clipping. Ryan's sentencing hearing is next week. Zara took the article and read it. Ryan had pleaded guilty to all charges in exchange for a reduced sentence. He would spend 4 years in federal prison and owe over $300,000 in restitution to various victims. Are you planning to attend? Julian asked. Yes. I want to make a victim impact statement. Are you sure? You don't have to face him again. I want to, Zara said firmly. I want him to see who I really am. Not the grateful, disabled wife he thought he married, but the woman who destroyed his life when he underestimated me. Julian nodded. He had learned not to question Zara's instincts about justice. She had an unerring sense of what was fair and what was necessary. Over the past 6 months, their working relationship had evolved into something deeper. Julian still served as the foundation's legal director, but he and Zara spent time together outside of work too. They went to concerts together, something Zara had thought she would never enjoy again. They took long walks through the city, talking about everything from legal strategy to travel plans to childhood memories. Julian never treated her hearing loss as something to overcome or work around. He simply accepted it as part of who she was, the same way he accepted her brown eyes or her laugh. I've been thinking, Julian said as they finished reviewing case files. When the Ryan situation is completely finished, maybe you should take that vacation you mentioned. I've been thinking the same thing, Zara said. Actually, I've been wondering if you'd like to come with me. Julian's face lit up. I would love that. Where were you thinking? Everywhere, Zara laughed. I want to hear the ocean in Ireland, street musicians in Paris, temple bells in Thailand. I want to experience all the sounds I thought I'd lost forever. That sounds like the perfect adventure. They were interrupted by Detective Martinez, who knocked on the conference room door. Sorry to bother you, but I have an update on the Brooke situation, she said. Brooke had been sentenced to 2 years in prison and permanent loss of her therapy license. But Detective Martinez had continued investigating her background. I found 2 more states where she had inappropriate relationships with clients, Detective Martinez reported. The authorities there are reopening those cases. She could face additional charges. Good, Zara said. She destroyed people's trust in therapy when they were most vulnerable. She deserves every consequence. After Detective Martinez left, Julian and Zara sat in comfortable silence, looking out at the city. Do you ever regret any of it? Julian asked. The public exposure, the legal battles, all the attention? Never, Zara said. For 8 years, I lived in Ryan's version of reality, where I was lucky to be loved despite my disability. Now I know the truth. I deserve to be loved because of who I am, not in spite of what I can't hear. You deserve everything good the world has to offer, Julian said quietly. The way he looked at her made Zara's heart race. Over the months, she had come to care for Julian in ways that went far beyond professional respect. He was kind, brilliant, passionate about justice, and he saw her as a complete person rather than a collection of limitations. Julian, she said carefully, what we've built here, with the foundation and everything, it's been the most meaningful work of my life. Mine too. But I think we've built something else too. Something personal. Julian reached across the table and took her hand. I was hoping you felt that way. I've been falling in love with you since the day we met, but I didn't want to complicate the legal situation. The legal situation is almost over, Zara said. And I've been falling in love with you too. When Julian kissed her, it was everything her relationship with Ryan had never been. It was honest, equal, and built on genuine respect and affection. For the first time in her life, Zara was in a relationship where she didn't have to be grateful just to be wanted. She was valued, appreciated, and loved for exactly who she was. So, Julian said when they broke apart, Ireland first or Paris? Ireland, Zara decided. I want to hear the waves crash against the cliffs. I want to understand what I've been missing. Then Ireland it is. As they made plans for their future together, Zara reflected on the journey that had brought her to this moment. Ryan's betrayal had been devastating, but it had also forced her to discover her own strength. She was no longer the woman who felt lucky to be loved. She was the woman who had fought back against injustice and won. She was the woman who had transformed her pain into protection for others. She was the woman who deserved everything good the world had to offer. And finally she was getting it. 1 year later, Zara stood at the podium in the state capitol, addressing a room full of legislators about the disability rights bill that bore her name. The Zara Bennett Protection Act will create real consequences for people who exploit disabled individuals financially, she said to the packed hearing room. No one should have to live in fear that the people they trust most are stealing from them. In the audience, Julian watched with pride as Zara commanded the attention of every person in the room. She had become a nationally recognized advocate for disability rights, traveling the country to speak about her experiences and lobby for legislative change. The foundation now had offices in 5 states and had recovered over $10 million for abuse victims. More importantly, they had sent 43 financial predators to prison and helped change laws in 12 states. But today wasn't just about advocacy. Today was personal. After the hearing, Julian and Zara drove to the courthouse where Ryan was being released after serving his 4-year sentence. Zara had insisted on being there, not to gloat, but to close this chapter of her life completely. Ryan emerged from the prison looking older and defeated. His expensive clothes had been replaced by cheap jail garments, and his confident swagger was gone. He looked like what he was, a man who had lost everything because of his own cruelty. He saw Zara waiting by the courthouse steps and approached hesitantly. "Hello, Zara." "Ryan." They stood looking at each other, the woman he had tried to destroy and the man who had underestimated her completely. "I heard about your foundation," Ryan said quietly, "and the laws they named after you. I guess you turned out to be stronger than I thought." "I was always this strong," Zara replied. "You just convinced me I wasn't." "I'm sorry," Ryan said, and for the first time in their relationship he sounded genuine. "I know that doesn't mean anything now, but I am sorry for what I did to you." Zara studied his face. Prison had humbled him in ways she had never seen. But his apology, while perhaps sincere, came too late and after too much damage. "I accept your apology," she said. "Not because it changes anything, but because I don't want to carry anger for you anymore." "What happens now?" Ryan asked. "Now you rebuild your life, hopefully without hurting anyone else," Zara said. "And I continue living mine." "Are you happy?" he asked. Zara looked at Julian, who was waiting beside their car. She thought about their upcoming wedding, their plans to adopt children, their shared commitment to making the world more just. "Happier than I've ever been in my life," she said. "I'm glad," Ryan said, and surprisingly he seemed to mean it. "You deserve happiness." "Yes," Zara said simply. "I do." As Ryan walked away to whatever uncertain future awaited him, Zara felt the last pieces of her old life fall away. She was no longer defined by what had been done to her, but by what she had accomplished in response. Julian took her hand as they walked back to their car. "How do you feel?" he asked. "Complete," Zara said. "Ready for whatever comes next." What came next was everything she had dreamed of and more. That evening at their engagement party, Zara was surrounded by friends, colleagues, and fellow advocates who valued her for her intelligence, courage, and compassion. Detective Martinez raised a toast to Zara, who turned her worst experience into other people's salvation. Thomas Sterling, Ryan's former boss who now served on the foundation's board, added, "To the strongest person I've ever met." Dr. Peterson, the surgeon who had restored her hearing, smiled from across the room, "To second chances and the courage to use them." But it was Julian's toast that meant the most to Zara. "To the woman who taught me that love isn't about gratitude or patience or sacrifice," he said, looking into her eyes. "It's about seeing someone exactly as they are and knowing you want to spend your life making them happy." Later that night, as they sat on the deck of their new house overlooking the lake, Zara reflected on the journey that had brought her here. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if the surgery hadn't worked?" Julian asked. "If you had never recovered your hearing?" "I think about that sometimes," Zara said. "I probably would have lived the rest of my life believing Ryan's lies about me. I would have accepted whatever scraps of love he decided to give me. But you're stronger than you knew. Even without hearing, you might have figured it out eventually." Zara shook her head. "I needed to hear his true voice to understand who he really was. And I needed to hear your voice to understand what real love sounds like." They sat in comfortable silence, listening to the sounds Zara never took for granted: wind through the trees, water lapping against the shore, night birds calling to each other. "Julian," she said finally, "thank you." "For what?" "For showing me that I was worth fighting for. For teaching me that disability doesn't mean grateful. For helping me understand that I deserve everything good." "You taught me just as much," Julian replied. "You showed me what real courage looks like. What it means to transform pain into purpose." As they went inside to plan their wedding and their future together, Zara thought about Ryan one last time. He had tried to convince her that her disability made her worthless, that she should be grateful for whatever love she could find. But he had been wrong about everything. Her hearing loss hadn't made her weak, it had made her resourceful and empathetic. Her vulnerability hadn't made her worthless, it had made her stronger when she chose to fight back. And she had never needed to be grateful for scraps of affection. She had always deserved the whole feast. Now she had it: a career that mattered, a foundation that was changing lives, laws that would protect other people, and a love that saw her as an equal partner in every sense. Ryan had tried to destroy her life and had ended up giving her the push she needed to build the life she actually deserved. In the end, that was the sweetest victory of all.